I am a 17-year-old male, and I recently moved to a new country for attending college. It was my first week there, and I didn't really know anyone in the country when this story took place. It was about 10 p.m. when I headed out to buy some groceries for the week at a nearby supermarket. Buying the groceries was uneventful, and since it was night, the shopping center was closing, meaning that only one of the exits was open. The exit led me to a very dark and dimly lit street, which I had never been to before since I was new here. I was navigating my way to the front of the shopping center, where my bike was parked, when I heard screaming from the other side of the street. I read and listen to a lot of horror stories, so this made me a bit uneasy. However, since it was the only way home, I continued walking. As I got closer to the end of the street, I now saw the car from which the noise was coming. There was a woman outside the car shouting in a foreign language at someone inside the car. In reply, from what I could comprehend, a man was screaming unintelligible words from inside the car in a voice which I can describe to be the most horrific sound I have ever heard. The woman stared at me as I walked past her and turned left, got to my bike, and unlocked it. The man from the car then forced his way out and ran towards me, screaming like a madman with a knife in his hand, and the woman tried chasing after him. I quickly started speeding away on my bike and thought I was safe after easily getting away from him. My home was just about half a mile from there, and I glanced back constantly out of fear, but saw no one following me. I reached my home, which is on the ground floor of an apartment complex, and locked all my doors and windows. I ate dinner and was playing video games for a few hours until about 1 a.m. in the night, when I heard a loud bang on the window. I raised the curtain, only to see that it was the same man I had seen earlier. I freaked out completely and ran to the complete opposite of my house and locked myself in the washroom, which was the only other room in the house. I dialed 112, which was the number for the police in this country. I explained the situation to them, and they said they were sending 2 police officers and that it would take about 15 minutes for them to reach me. All this time, I remained on the line and was hearing loud bangs and screaming from the man. By the time the police arrived, the man was already gone, and there was nothing they would be able to do, so they filed a police report, took a statement from me, and left. The country I came to for studying is supposed to be way safer than where I come from, but this incident made me realize that maniacs and creeps exist everywhere, and I should always stay alert. It's been a week since this incident, and nothing related to this has happened, and I'm hoping it stays that way.
When I was 15, I found a job in a local newspaper for a live-in babysitter. It was summer and I wanted to make some money. I lived in a rural area and did not have transportation to get to a mall or fast food place to work the usual jobs for teens. There was no public transport where I lived and no jobs in the rural town I lived in. I called the number for the live-in babysitting job and a man answered. I found out that he was a divorced man with 2 young children. They were school-age, elementary school, and were home for summer vacation, and he needed someone to watch them while he was at work. He spoke to my mother on the phone and she agreed to allow me to do the live-in job. As an adult, I questioned so many of her decisions, and certainly this one. He picked me up and drove me to his house. And while driving, he told me that he was engaged. He said that his fiancée was his former babysitter, and she was a few years older than I was. As a 15-year-old, this did not set off any alarm bells. I just thought it was weird that someone my age would want to be with an old man. He was probably in his late 30s to mid-40s. I thought it was weird when I was taking the children for a walk, and a woman who lived in the neighborhood looked at me in an odd way, like something was wrong about me walking with those children. And when I smiled and waved, she just looked away and ignored me. I didn't give it a lot of thought though, just seemed strange. The house was a split-level home, a style where the floor levels are split. The main living area and the bedrooms were on the top level, and the lower level just had a living room area and a single bedroom. That was my assigned room. Not long after I began living in the home to babysit for this guy, he knocked on my bedroom door after I had gone to bed. I was kind of freaked out by this, and I opened the door partially to ask what he wanted. He acted all friendly and asked me if I wanted a beer, like he was cool with that. I simply said no and waited for him to leave and shut the door. The next day I told him that I no longer wanted to do the job and had him take me back home. I didn't fully understand at the time that he was a predator who was trying to groom me into having a relationship with him. But I knew enough to know that something was just not right about the situation, and that he was creepy, and something told me to get out of there.
Yesterday, I popped into the little Tesco in my town as I was making spaghetti bolognese and realized I had no onions. Usually, I wear a mask, but my nephew had left teeny chocolate handprints on my white mask, so it was in the washing machine. I am fully vaccinated, so I didn't think it'd be an issue when I was literally grabbing onions and paying by card. Plus, masks are no longer compulsory here. I'm just paranoid as I live with someone high risk. As I walk in, a guy who is probably a little shorter than me also walks in at the same time. He smiles and says hi to me. I'm a smiley person and will be friendly to anyone, so I say hi back, smile, and walk on. He goes down the crisps and chocolate aisle, and I head for the ready meals and vegetables. Out of the corner of my eye, I can see his head following me as I walked past. I know I am a pretty girl, but I'm also relatively large, and while I do get attention from men, it isn't usually the full-on watching me go kind of thing. I thought nothing of it at the time. It was a little flattering, so I got my onions and walked to the till. The man was standing directly in front of me. No issue with that, until he turns around and smiles at me. I smiled back and looked away. I kid you not, guys, he starts doing lunges, like actual lunges in front of me. He then stretches his leg up behind his back and twists his torso to look back at me. I'm pretty uncomfortable at this point, so I'm avidly reading the wine rack. There's a wine up there called beefsteak wine, and I'm super confused, I don't drink, as to why it's called that. Is it a beef-flavored wine? Is it specifically for beef and steak pairings? God, I hope it's the latter. All the while, this guy is still lunging, twisting, and trying to smile at me. Finally, the old dear in front has all her stuff in her granny trolley and shuffles off. The man in front buys his cigarettes and chocolate bar and goes to stand by the front door. I'm feeling super uncomfortable at this point because he's literally staring at me while I buy my onions. I pay and go for the door, again avoiding eye contact and just acting like I'm in my own little world. But he doesn't seem to take the hint and stops me at the door. He says, "Hi, I'm John Smith. Can I get your number?" I tell him no and start walking to my car. I'm not sure what happened next, but a second later, an older gentleman with a West Highland Terrier has stepped in between us and said, "The girl said no, leave her be." I thank the older man, avoiding the other guy's eyes, and go to my car. He ran to his van, gets in, and waits. I just have a bad feeling at this point. So I drive out of the car park and go the opposite way to my house. Thinking back on it, it was probably a really stupid move of mine because I drove in the direction of nowhere. Like, the next town is 30 miles in the direction I drove, with a ton of small villages in between, the nearest being 9 miles away. Like I said, not smart. And just as my instincts said he would, John Smith starts to follow me. He's in a white van, and I'm in a little car, so the windy roads and random side lanes did come in handy. I ended up driving 17 miles out of my way in a giant semicircle to get home. He followed me for at least 8 of those miles before he lost me going up a large bendy hill that opens onto a blind crossroad. Just to make sure I wasn't being paranoid, I took turns that made absolutely no sense and drove in pretty much a complete circle before moving on. It started out as a semi-flattering thing in the supermarket and turned into me nearly killing us both, speeding round tight corners too scared to stop. I honestly don't understand the entitlement of people that think this behavior is acceptable. I do have his number plate, and I'm probably going to report him to the police, to be honest. I have the entire thing on dashcam. What's up, everybody? This is the Lone Wolf here. Thank you so much for listening to the video. I hope you guys enjoyed these 3 stories. I want to give a very big thank you to the Redditors who allowed me to read their stories in this video. There will of course be links to their posts in the description below for anybody else who wants to read them. I also want to give a very special shout out to my guest for this video, Creepy Pasta Goblin. He is a very good horror narrator, and I'm very glad that I got to work with him. If you guys liked his narration and want to check out more of his work, there will be a link to his channel in the description, as well as an icon that will appear on screen at the end of this closing. If you're new to my channel, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing if you like the narrations. Hit the bell for notifications and join the Lone Wolf Pack. If any of you guys want to send me a message or maybe a personal scary story that you would like to hear on my channel, there will be a link to my email account and my Twitter account in the description. There will also be links in the description for all of the music artists that I used in this video, along with each individual track that I used for those of you interested in the music. And last but certainly not least, if any of you guys have any ideas or tips for me to make my channel even better, please leave me a comment or send me a personal message. Until next time, stay spooky. And remember, the hunt begins when the moon is full. See you soon.